them all what I'm made up. Strut down the hall, won't stop till I get enough.
So you likely saw those headlines flying around about potentially reopening Alcatraz.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That legendary island prison.
Right, and the talk was, housing America's most ruthless and violent offenders. It grabbed attention everywhere.
Absolutely, especially since, it's been closed for what, over 60 years now?
Exactly. But what's really interesting here, perhaps, is that while Alcatraz got all the buzz, it might be overshadowing something, bigger and already happening.
That's a great point, because behind that Alcatraz noise, the administration's actually been moving on reopening at least 5 other places.
5 other facilities, and not just like empty buildings, right? Some of these had issues.
Big issues, yeah. We're talking places shut down specifically because of safety problems, mistreatment allegations, really serious stuff.
Okay, so that's a huge contrast. Alcatraz is maybe a future idea, but these other reopenings,
they're already well underway, or even finished in some cases.
Right. So for this deep dive, let's try to cut through that Alcatraz spectacle and look at what's really going on with these other facilities.
Good plan. What kind of places are they? Where are they? And what are the worries?
Exactly. Let's start down in Southern California, California City Correctional Facility.
Yeah, that one. Out in the desert region. It was actually a state prison, only closed last year.
And now ICE wants to reopen it.
That's the plan, or at least what they've sought. And importantly, it's owned by Core Civic.
Core Civic, the private prison company. They have a long history with ICE detention, don't they? They do. A major partner for a long time. And California City is, it's pretty big. Used to hold over 2,000 people.
Okay. Then there's another California one, FCI Dublin, Federal Correctional Institution. This one seems to have a really troubling history.
It really does. You've got California Democrats warning that ICE is interested in it.
Why was it closed?
Systemic sexual abuse by staff. That was the main driver. Plus, serious worries about mold and asbestos contamination. Wow. And is work actually happening there?
Well, the Correctional Officers Union reported maintenance crews were in there working under potentially hazardous conditions. Seemed like prep work for reopening.
But no official word from ICE or the Bureau of Prisons on Dublin.
No comment from either agency confirming any plans for it, as far as we know.
Okay, let's shift over to Michigan. North Lake Correctional Facility. This sounds significant.
It is. If it reopens as planned, it would be the largest immigration detention center in the entire Midwest.
The largest. Where is it exactly?
It's in rural Lake County, Michigan, owned by another big private prison company, the Geo Group.
Geo Group, okay. And capacity?
About 1,800 people. This place has had a few lives. It's held teenage boys, people incarcerated from other states, and immigrants too.
When did it close?
It's been dormant since 2022 under the Biden administration.
And any past issues there? Like Dublin?
Well, yeah. There was a hunger strike back in 2020. Detainees alleged some really serious things. They claimed they were denied mail, couldn't get religiously appropriate food, that their legal paperwork was destroyed, even long stretches in solitary confinement.
And Geo Group's response?
They denied the claims at the time, but yeah, it paints a worrying picture from its past operations.
And Geo Group is also involved with Delaney Hall in New Jersey, right? That one just reopened.
That's right. In Newark, it recently started taking in immigration detainees again.
But it's already running into trouble locally.
Seems so. The city of Newark is actually suing Geo Group.
Over what?
They allege Geo Group didn't get the required construction permits, wouldn't let city inspectors inside the facility. The mayor's been quite vocal.
And Geo Group, what's their side?
They say they have a valid certificate of occupancy, everything's up to code, compliant with safety rules. They've basically called the mayor's opposition a politicized campaign.
Okay, let's move to Kansas now.
Yeah.
Leavenworth. The Midwest Regional Reception Center, or MRRC. Another Core Civic facility.
Yes, Core Civic again. And IC is actively working to reopen this one, too.
Yeah.
It was closed back in 2021.
And the history here. Is it better?
Unfortunately, no. The history is deeply concerning. The ACLU documented major problems before it closed.
What kind of problems?
Frequent stabbings, suicides, rampant contraband, just basic human needs allegedly not being met, restricted food, very limited contact with lawyers or family, poor medical care, infrequent showers.
That sounds awful.
It does. A federal judge actually called the place a hellhole at one point.
And Leavenworth itself, the city, is opposing the reopening.
Yeah, the city sued Core Civic back in March, again, over allege failures to follow the proper local permitting rules for the reopening work.
Has CoreCivic responded to these historical criticisms of MRC?
They have. Their spokesperson essentially blamed the past issues on severe understaffing during the pandemic.
So a temporary problem, they argue.
Right. They claim the major problems were concentrated in about an 18-month window. They now say they're committed, not cutting corners on care, staffing, or training.
And they've mentioned zoning, too.
Yeah, they pointed to an op-ed by the warden saying the facility has always been correctly zoned for detention use.
And just to round out the CoreCivic picture, they also reopened a family detention center recently.
That's right, in Texas. That happened just last month.
So, okay, when you pull back and look at all these California City, Dublin, North Lake, Delaney Hall, MRRC, the Texas facility, it's quite a pattern.
It really is. It paints a picture of a much broader effort by ICE to significantly boost detention capacity, much bigger than just Alcatraz.
Likely tied to plans for increased deportations, you think?
That seems to be the implication, yes. Expanding the detention network seems like a key step for any large-scale removal operations.
And it's not just reopening these specific facilities, right? There are other methods being used.
Correct. We're also seeing moves to put immigration detainees into Bureau of Prisons facilities, federal prisons.
Which raises its own questions, I imagine.
Definitely. Concerns about whether those facilities are appropriate for immigration detention, access to legal help, things like that, plus straining BUP resources. There's also been a push to expand contracts with local county jails to hold detainees and even talk about using military bases.
So a multi-pronged approach to expansion. What's the take from groups like the ACLU on this overall trend?
Well, Eunice Cho from the ACLU has been very critical. They argue ICE is essentially ignoring why these places were shut down in the first place.
Ignoring the safety issues.
Exactly. Knowingly putting immigrants back into facilities with documented dangers.
And the ACLU believes this has consequences beyond just the conditions.
Yeah, their big concern is that being held in such harsh, inadequate conditions could actually pressure people, pressure them to give up valid claims for asylum or other legal relief just to get out of detention.
Can you explain that a bit more? Why would bad conditions make someone give up a valid legal claim?
Well, think about applying for asylum. It's complex. You need documents, evidence, constant contact with lawyers. If you're stuck in a place with very limited phone access, maybe no access to legal resources, maybe your mail isn't getting through, basic needs aren't met, it can feel impossible. You can become desperate.
So the conditions themselves become a barrier to justice.
That's the argument, that people might feel forced to choose between enduring those conditions indefinitely while trying to fight their case, or just giving up their legal rights to get released or deported faster.
I see. And the ACLU also mentioned local backlash.
Yes. They say there's growing opposition in communities as people learn more about the conditions inside these facilities and also about the, billions of dollars going to these private prison corporations.
Okay, so what about the official responses? Has ICE commented on these specific reopenings we've discussed?
We asked, but ICE didn't provide a comment for this.
And the Bureau of Prisons, especially regarding FCI Dublin.
Their spokesperson didn't answer specific questions about Dublin.
But the VAP director has commented more broadly.
Yes, William K. Marshall III. He stated publicly that the Bureau would, quote, vigorously pursue all avenues to support and implement the president's agenda.
And he mentioned Alcatraz specifically.
He did. He said he'd ordered an immediate assessment of Alcatraz, viewing it as a, quote, powerful symbol of law, order, and justice.
The symbol. But what about the practicalities of reopening Alcatraz? What does the ACLU say about that?
Corinne Kendrick at the ACLU basically called it a stunt.
A stunt? Why?
She pointed out the obvious lack of basic infrastructure, no running water, no proper sewage, limited electricity. She called the idea completely far-fetched and preposterous, essentially impossible to actually reopen as a working prison.
So it really does seem like a tale of two strategies. We have this very loud, symbolic Alcatraz proposal,
which experts think is highly unlikely, almost performative,
happening at the same time as this quieter but very real effort to reactivate these other facilities.
Exactly. Facilities with documented histories of serious problems.
That seems to be the core takeaway here. The Alcatraz headlines grab your eye, but the real action, the tangible expansion of detention is happening at these other sites.
Right. And across these different places, California, Michigan, New Jersey, Kansas, Texas, you see the same themes recurring. Safety worries, past allegations of mistreatment, local fights over reopening.
No.
especially with the for-profit companies involved.
Which really leaves you thinking about the bigger picture. What does it mean long-term for the people detained and for the communities involved when facilities with these kinds of documented problems are brought back online?
Yeah, and what does this push tell us fundamentally about the priorities driving immigration enforcement policy right at this moment?